Oke, udah ya. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Oke, pakai bahasa Inggris. Nggak usah lah ya, pakai bahasa Indonesia aja. Selamat pagi, selamat siang, ataupun malam teman-teman yang akan menonton video ini melalui presentasi kami dari grup 2 mengenai The Translator, Interpreter, and Cultural Mediator. Perkenalkan, kami dari kelompok 2. Ada saya selaku moderator bernama Muhammad Farbian, ada Diandra Aristia, ada Gaitsa Fauzia, dan ada Fahmi Awaludin Jailani, dan ada Karisa Duyanti. Boleh di next slide? Nah, next slide. Baiklah. Nah, pertama-tama materi yang akan kita bawakan ada Translation and Culture yang akan dibawakan oleh Karisa. Karisa, this time is yours. Silakan, Karisa.
Okay, thanks to the moderator. Here I will read about translation and culture. Efforts are now being made to harmonize legislation and code of practice across, and dramatic improvements are being made through ever expanding online solutions, such as search engine, specialist glossaries, corpus-based tool, computer aid, or machine translation. So, what is translation and culture? Translation, a converting process that helps people who speak different language to understand each other perspective and be able to maintain a healthy communication in translation. It again gets down to connection culture and eradicting the culture difference that may exist. The importance of translating in culture and language is high because it pushes the wheel ahead for better communication between two parties. And then culture reflect the way in which people behave. It is a pattern in which we analyze the behavior, social habit, belief, traditional, and custom. When we are trying to know more about the culture, language play an important role, and to understand language, one needs translation as one might not know of the particular language. Okay, next slide. Communication at this level has no exact linguistic content. The text is the authority and it is clearly spelled out. It is the type of translation that would be subsumed under effortless communication and described by ready conduit metaphor, which suggests that understanding language is a process of encoding and decoding, like a marvelous technological duplicating machine. Next slide. There are a number of terms here that are polysmos. The first is the idiomatic expression on the fly, which might mean general sense that the position information of mobile is collected quickly or spatially sense that the information is collected without interrupting a computer program that is already running. And then the second is the nominalist adjective mobile. The most usual general meaning is mobile phone, but in the text we have 11 references to mobile device, 5 to mobile user or line and 2 each to mobile object and mobile station. In this case, a professional interpreter or translator will not only need to have a near native command of both language, but also need to know how best to find equivalencies. Okay, maybe enough for me. I'm back to the moderator.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Carissa. I think I have made a mistake by presenting or maybe opening these presentations with Indonesians. So let's just re-roll the presentations within an English language, I think. And the second material is internationalizations and localization. This material will be given by me, by myself. So, what is localizations? With the localizations, we move to the boundaries of the traditional definitions of translation proper, which the Russian linguist by Roman Jacobson famously defined as an interpretations of verbal signs by means of some other language. That that was localizations. I think originally coined to define that the way software need to be re-engineered for different language and cultures, of course. But now that the term is used more generally to describe the tailoring of an existing product to the needs of a specific local market, of course. And this might include anything from changing the color and the packaging design of the product, of course, to adapt the language or maybe the layout and visuals of the accompanying instructions manual. And that would be said by O'Hagan and Hansworth in 2002. And then the localizations is also used to describe any web product which is designed separately with a specific local appeal, such as local editions of Times and Newsweek, said O'Hagan and Ashworth in 2002 in the page 67. And the what's that? The terminologies is the interminalizations. On the other hand, is the design of a product so that it can be easily adapted to foreign markets. Yeah, it is. Please next slide, Leandra. Now, here is the thing, as the example, okay? In India, it is an interesting example of issues regarding internationalizations and localizations about the issues. And in 1995, telecommunications were in you can call it Stone Age because of it's really unbearably old, and with only one telephone in per 200 houses in India, in one country, the terrestrial lines were few and far between, so that India then invest resources in state of the art satellite technology that allowing to move directly from reliance on public phones to personal mobile phones. So from the public phones to personal mobile phones means that technology and the support infrastructure were delivered mainly from China, of course, through an internalized language, or maybe in you can say it in English, that the technicians had learned. But however, as a true as a late 2013 in 2013, while India had the second largest mobile phone ownership in the world, the profit from the phone use were among the lowest, because China Mobile, for example, was making 5 times as much money because rather than India, because they had localized their software so that the users could text and access the internet in Mandarin Chinese only. That's why the reason lay in the lack of localizations to India. The subcontinent has only 23 official language, with Hindi being the most popular, though English is the second most widely spoken in India, so that the vast majority of the populations are not proficient speaker. So even though they are really using English as a daily language, of course, as the second language in India, but the proficient speakers is not really that much in India, I think, based on the what's that? Based on the article itself says. Then next slide, please. Leandra, next slide. Okay, thank you. So then the problem was that the most phones came with an English only operating system, which why it is not internationalized, and it becomes really hard for people in India, especially that they use in English language oftenly, but not really that having a proficiency to speak in English. Uh, it's not making the localization out of questions as a result. That the majority of users only phone and operators were unable to capitalize on any of the other features such as texting or maybe internet searching and etc., which all had to be accessed through what's that English language. And then internationalized software is now available in India, which means that the smartphone touchscreens can display uh, such as script keyboards for the Hindi speaker or a Bengali keyboard for the Bengalis and so on and so on. So that while purely globalization is pushing successfully to an internationalized English, and you can see as the example here in the table 1.2. The table 1.2 is taken from internal Microsoft document 1 warning localizers of typical localizations problem when translating software and manuals from American to Indian. The table 1.2 says that type of problem is Microsoft commands on US based, of course, culture bound language or icon which will need to be localized. And then also in the fonts and size, they have a problem also. Such as keyboard layouts, default paper and envelope sizes, character sets, text directionally left to right or maybe right to left, horizontal, vertical, etc., etc., so on and so on. And then, as the example, as you can see from the example, there are many problems because in India, internalizations and localizations are not really being implemented in their country, so that making the progress of their economic way, their political way, their knowledge way is not really that growth much because of the internet itself, because of the technologies itself is not really that familiar for people in India. Next slide, please. So then, I think that's all from me to bring the material. Please, for the next material is the cultural mediator. Will be presented by Gaitza. Please, Gaitza, time is yours.
Yes, thank you for the moderator. So the next matter is the cultural mediator. The term cultural mediator was first introduced in Stephen Buchner's The Mediating Person, Bridge Between Cultures. 3 decades later, the Council of Europe defined intercultural mediation is a multifaceted rule in which the mediator acts essentially as an outside third party and cultural intermediary between a person or community and institution departments. Mediator are often referred to as brokers, facilitators, conciliators, or negotiator because of their interpersonal skills and their abilities to bring people together around collective issues. Raga Jimeno notes that the intercultural mediator is far from consistent in terms of training, working condition, or rule expectation. Cultural mediators remains an exciting, inspiring new activity that shares similarities with other professions such as social work, social mediation, educational psychology, translation, and interpretation. Taft, in his contribution to Buchner's volume on the subject, defines the rule as follows. A cultural mediator is a person who facilitates communication, understanding, and action between persons or groups who differ with respect to language and culture. Next slide. So, according to Taft, a mediator must possess the following competencies in both cultures. First is knowledge about society. For example, history, folklore, traditions, custom values, prohibition, the natural environment and its importance, neighboring people, important people in the society. The second is communication skills. For example, is written, spoken, and nonverbal. The third is technical skills, those required by the mediator status, computer literacy, appropriate dress. The last is social skills, knowledge of rules that govern social relation in society and emotional competence, the appropriate level of self-control. Next slide. So similarly, Ragajimeno identifies three types of communicative activities and related skills required of cultural mediators. First is linguistic, including translation and interpreting of verbal communication, knowledge of terminology, and appropriate register. The second is explicitation of cultural beliefs, interactional patterns, administrative norms, and procedures. The last is negotiation and conflict resolution techniques. So, the role of the mediator is performed by interpreting the expression, intention, perception, and expectation of each cultural group to the other. That is, by establishing and balancing the communication between them. In order to serve as a link in this sense, the mediator must be able to participate to some extent in both cultures. Thus, a mediator must be to a certain extent bicultural. Maybe that's it for me. Back to the moderator.
Tes. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. So the next material is the translator and interpreter that will be given by Fahmi. Fahmi, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, Fahmi, time is yours.
Thank you. Sorry, is it clear?
Clear, Fahmi.
Clear.
That's
Ada suaranya gak?
clear, Fahmi. Aman, silahkan.
Yes. Thank you for the moderator. So I will explain about the translator and interpreter. So the the interpreter plus one, as a cultural mediator, the interpreter will need to be a specialist in communication and understanding between cultures. So Sandra Hall notes language and culture are intertwined, and accurate interpreting cannot be achieved at the basic word level. Words interaction only take on meaning according to context, situation, participants, and culture. And Annalie and Carl suggest that the interpreter should become a visible third part and within certain limits may develop his or her own initiatives, introduce new topics, give comments, explanation, present arguments, and many more. So, interpreters and translators play an important role in facilitating people who do not share a common language to communicate effectively with each other. And yeah, of course, they aim to ensure that the full intent of communication is conveyed. Next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. The second is the translator. So George Steiner point out that the translator is a bilingual mediating again between monolingual communication participants in two different language. So the translator is first and foremost a mediator between two parties from mutual communication. But a mediator is more than a translator. From the book and what I got, so Lance Hewson and Jackie Martin on 1991 agree that the translator is also a critic. Next slide, please. And the next is Hatim and Mason conclude with two specific ways in sorry because I'm in Chinatown. So Hatim and Mason conclude with two specific ways in which a translator is a mediator. The first one is bicultural vision. What is the bicultural vision? So the translator is uniquely placed to identify and resolve the disparity between sign and value across the cultures. And the second is critical reader. The translator is a privileged reader of the search language text. She or he will have the opportunity to read the text carefully before translating, and therefore is in a position to help the target reader by producing a clear text as the content would warrant. Next slide. Nah, difficulties according to Artamepa on 1998. The first one is differences in language structure and rhetorical pattern. So, for example, someone who translating jadi yang English US to understanding the meaning. And second is misunderstanding and misrepresentation. So sama yang tadi ya. And the last one is the translator's lack of knowledge of cultural, social, or specific fields, such as law, and many more. Thank you. I'll give back to the moderator.
Okay. Thank you very much, Fahmi, for your presentations about the material. And then next we have classifications of role that will be presented by Diandra. Diandra, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, time is yours.
Okay, now I will explain about classifications of roles. It is now widely acknowledged that translation and interpreting entail and require more than just language transfers. Nonetheless, as we have seen above, it is debatable whether or not translators and interpreters should be involved in these additional activities. And classifications overall by Tipton and Farmanek. In their volume subtitle A, Guide to Interpreting in Public Service, and the community suggests a number of core competences which relate closely to Ferrap's views, Tipton and Farmanek's care competence. The first one is linguistic. It includes strategies for handling culture, specific reference, such as translator, interpreter, and cultural mediator. Second is thematic, including how to identify gaps in cultural knowledge in relation to a limited proficiency speaker country of origin. Third is interpersonal. It is including attention to psychosocial support, such as technological, including terminology, management, and use of social media. And the fourth is business related. It is including time and customer relation management. And the last one is development. It is including managing working with others and responding to pressure and change. And as you can see in this, the translator interpreter feeding their own beliefs, knowledge, and attitude into the comprehension and reformulations of text. And finally, contractual mediation is understood as the actions or role of managing social relations and resolving conflicts or difference, including intercultural ones. And Pochecker on 2008 provides an illuminating the construction and discussion of the notion of mediation, especially as it relates to community interpreting and, to a lesser extent, translation. Pochecker starts from the dictionary meanings of mediation as the first one is intersection between conflicting parties with a view to achieving reconciliation or mutual understanding. Second is action or function of an intermediate channel of transmission. And so, for the translator, interpreters, and cultural mediators alike, it is an essential requirement to have a good understanding of cultural differences and how cultures operate. This takes us to the teaching of culture for this professional. According to Newmark, much of the analysis of the cultural aspect of the ESL text may be intuitive. The following chapter will investigate that intuition and should form part of the formal learning about culture and the way it guides how we communicate and how we mediate. I think that's all for me. I'll give it back to the moderator.
Okay, I think that's enough for the presentations, and then you guys can see about the videos. I think maybe tomorrow or maybe tonight will be uploaded in YouTube. So thank you guys for watching and being able to hear all the presentations, and thank you guys. So assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.